We're live.
And we are live, and welcome to the first edition of EnRich Holistic podcast. This is my first real launch of the podcast through EnRich Holistic. I've done a few others before, but now I'm quite passionate about making this a process I always do when I bring new people on board through the Holistic Hub. So I get a chance to share with people who are going to come to experience these facilitators what they are actually about, and to give them more insight and a better introduction towards what they're going to come and to be witnessing within the hub. And yeah, so my main thing about the holistic side of life is the mind, body, and the soul, and not just like spiritual work, not just physical work, but relationships. And that's why I'm quite passionate about the interview I'm doing today with Jacqlin Richards, and that's around relationships, parenting, teens, raising children, and raising the awareness around that as well. But also helping people and giving people some guidelines when they're new parents, and also how they can change what they do and how they approach things. So I'd like to welcome Jacqlin. I've got a little read up here. Mother of two. Parent empowerment mentor, speaker, facilitator, and author. She's bringing greater awareness to how we raise our children and our teens. She's done the AM show, the TV3 cafe show, and she's been in many magazines just sharing her passions around these subjects. So welcome, Jacqlin.
So good to be here, Rich. Really good to be on your podcast. Looking forward to seeing where we're going to go.
Yeah, we're just gonna let this roll. Like we've spoken so many times before this. We're like, that should have been a podcast. So we're just gonna completely roll with it naturally, authentically. We've done no rehearsals here, and I feel this is our passion, Jacqlin. It's one of mine as well, and I feel that breaking the chains from the past, conditioning via parents and what they were taught. I think this is me and you breaking these links and creating a new start with parents is where it all begins, doesn't it? Because it's all right us adults, consciously growing and self-development, but it's breaking that actual chain from us getting to this point, eh?
Yep. Absolutely. And I lovingly and playfully call this a trap, that when we fall into the patterns of the past, I call it the we parent from the past trap. And it's a really sticky one. And I think that for us as parents, it doesn't matter how much work we're doing outside of ourselves and our sort of adult lives, if we're not actually bringing that home and into the way that we're relating to our kids, then we're simply repeating the cycles and things aren't going to change. So it's a huge piece. It's a huge piece.
Yeah. So what are you this time around, Jacqlin? What are you going to bring into the Holistic Hub?
Well, I think there's probably a lot of stuff that I could bring. One of the things that I really am interested in bringing is the energy of play. And I know for me in my earlier years as a parent, I thought, oh my God, I've forgotten how to play. I can't even reach that energy. I'm so serious. I'm so intense. I'm so freaking adult that, I didn't know how to interact with my kids, and I didn't know how to relate to them. And having kids was a real invitation to try and rekindle that smaller version of myself, that smaller playful version of myself that I feel like I'd misplaced, or just kind of lost at the bottom of the trap, in amongst the responsibilities and the burdens, or all of this heaviness that I associated with being an adult. So bringing the energy of play is something that I work a lot with in terms of the clients that I work with in my parenting work, and teaching the recipe of play, right? Because there's a recipe. And the reason why I like to speak in terms of things being a recipe, because it's playful, it's light, and I think that the world has enough seriousness and intensity in it as it is.
Yeah.
And I know for me that in my earlier years, yeah, and before I was a parent, I was the most serious and intense person I know. And when people meet me these days, they're just like, what? They don't even believe it, because I show up in a completely different way. But there is a recipe for play, and there are ingredients that we kind of need to be aware of, but leave out. You know, we can push those aside, and we want to bring in these completely different ingredients into our lives, not only as parents but as adults, because we're all parenting, right? We all have that small version of ourselves still
Yeah.
inside. And when we can bring that out and invite that little boy, that little girl to play, then man, life becomes really, really different.
Yeah, and I guess for some of us it's natural, like, that playfulness with children and still having that inner child alive. But for some it's quite a serious matter as well, when they've got like their business pressures and all their other pressures. Playfulness actually gets pushed aside, doesn't it?
It
And
really,
yeah, and I'm really excited to see what it looks like. So is this playfulness that people bring into everyday life, or is it playfulness like with just within classes?
well, I mean, the playfulness that I offer in workshops and my sessions when I work with people is obviously in a container, or, you know, in a class setting. But this is
Yeah.
the invitation to bring it into your life, yeah, so that whenever there's a moment, and it doesn't have to just be an intense moment or a serious moment, it's just being able to engage the energy of play throughout your everyday life. You know, when something's going on, to choose to choose the energy of play rather than just being serious about something. And I know for me that when I first began to find my play again, it helped me shift through sticky moments, yeah, or tense moments. When there was a stressful moment with my kids, if I could choose play, it would shift the energy faster than anything I've ever seen. And it was amusing. It was really funny because I was giving a workshop not long ago. It was an evening workshop, and of course my kids were home, so that, you know, they're in the next room, and I'm here facilitating a workshop online for a whole bunch of parents. And my youngest boy heard me talking about the votivillo. Now it's a pillowcase with spots on it, right? It's a spotted pillowcase, and that became
Yeah.
the votivillo. And and that was the beginning of the most ridiculous series of accents that I now speak to my children with, and a lot of other people. A lot of people think that I'm Irish or Scottish or some other kind of conglomeration of various accents, but it's fun. Yeah, it's fun, and it just
Yeah.
lightens everything. And a lot of the time my kids would look at me, and they'll just be, what? You know, and laughter will come. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying, okay, we can find the space to show up in a different way. We can find the space to respond
Right.
in a different way. And
Yeah. So just the general communication when you with like, right. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Because I was going to share with people, this is my first time really of understanding what you're going to be sharing as well. So these are really authentic questions here. All right. So we're talking like, from the minute we wake up with our kids and our teens, how we could be more playful and yeah. Okay.
yeah. And I mean, it takes space. And this is something that's really been landing for me over the last little while, is that if we don't actually have a spaciousness in our life, yeah, in ourselves, then that reaction or that trigger when we get triggered, because, our kids push our buttons, right? That's what happens. And when we do get triggered, or our buttons get pushed and we go straight into a reaction, it's like there's no space between those two things. And
Yeah.
create a bit of space is where you can, what allows us to respond in a different way. Um,
Yeah.
and finding that space means that we can choose. We can choose to respond with a bit of play. We can choose to respond with authenticity, with transparency. And I think one of the things that's really been landing for me with a lot of the work that I've got coming up, which is speaking, speaking on stages, speaking in panels, speaking in action groups, this sort of speaking uh, engagement or way of voicing my work, is that we need to be transparent with our kids. We need to be authentic with our kids, and we want to get to a place where they actually want to speak to us. Yeah,
Yeah, and they know that we're listening.
yeah, exactly. And how do we do that, right? Because there's another recipe here that I love to talk about, because I don't know about you, Rich, but when I was a kid, the or tween or teen, the lines of communication were not open, right? They were not open. My parents were not someone that I were, because my mum was really the only one on the scene. I had a stepfather that came in a little bit later, but they weren't someone that I would go to when the shit was hitting the fan, or when something was really going on for me, or I had some big stuff coming up and I didn't know how to deal with it. They weren't the ones that I went to,
Mm.
and feeling like I really had no one.
I don't think I went to anyone.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
therefore, all of this stuff stays within you, right? And now we're talking about the work that we do to help bring this stuff up and out for the adults that we're working with.
Yeah.
However, when we can work with parents to start supporting their children in a really, really different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to
Well,
the core of the core.
yeah. I mean, our parents were in survival mode, eh? Like my parents, their parents, my parents that came out of survival mode through the war and stuff. Yeah. And then my parents, obviously that was still conditioned in them, and it was really about earning money and supporting the family. For my parents, that's what it was.
Yeah,
But I've been in a lucky enough position to do 20 odd years more of personal growth. So now it's my responsibility to pass on what I've learned to my kids. And how am I going to do that, And yeah, and through like these acts of playfulness, and having the courage. It takes courage to be open to a teenager and be like, I want to sit down and have a talk with you, eh? Which is what I go through at the minute.
yeah, it does.
Uh,
And
yeah,
it's absolutely one of the ingredients is courage, for sure. It's a huge ingredient, but in terms of being able to show up in a different way, because I absolutely agree, our parents were in survival. My mum was born in the middle of the war, and what I'm finding with a lot of the parents and the non-parents that I work with is that it's not about survival so much anymore, but it's about existing. They're just existing. Yeah, but they're not thriving. It's and that's kind of the middle piece. We've done the survival. Now we're kind of in this state of existing, and we want to get to thriving. And that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in thriving. And I know for me that when I started looking at my parenting, everything changed, because every single relationship that we have is a reflection of our parenting. Every single relationship that we have with everyone and everything, the relationship we have with our body, the relationship we have with food, with money, with sex, with everything is a reflection of how we were parented. So if
yeah,
we go there, then man, that uncovers everything, and we can actually start to make really, really significant shifts in the way that we show up, not only for ourselves, our partners, our kids, and every other person that we come into connection with.
yeah. What I find strange, Jacqueline, at the moment is like working so hard to provide for the family, okay, and to create this future and to be the best person of yourself. Almost then you get wrapped up in this, right? I'll speak for myself, and I'll find myself at the weekend really making sure I switch off. I don't call it the weekend. I call it the strong end. I pick my girls up from school on a Friday. I've created this thing where I can pick them up from school, and I make sure I'm switched off from work. I am fully present because I haven't always been. It's like, yeah, but if I, when I'm with them, I'm still trying to be on the business, but then I'm not being fully present. So it's a real fine line of trying to provide as much as you can, but be as present as you can as well. And yeah, speaking to a lot of parents lately that it's quite hard for them to switch off when they're with them,
Yeah.
even though when they're with them, they're not switched off because it's for them. It's quite a balance, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. And connection is what they're seeking, right? The kids are just
Yeah,
seeking connection, and they're seeking it with us as their parents. And I mean, I gave this tool away that I use because it actually doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to connect with our kids, and it
yeah,
has to be 100% present engaged time. And I offer a tool called the 10-minute connection tool. And it's like
Right.
literally like when your kids come home from school or when you first
Yeah.
see them, you give them 10 minutes of undivided, absolute 100% engaged connection time
Totally.
with them. And then their tanks are full, right? Because it's about filling their connection tanks. And I
Yeah.
remember, when I first became a solo parent, because I mean, I co-parent with my boy's dad, and I felt like an absolute solo parent in the beginning. And when they would come home from school, I'd be busy. I'd be like, right, I got to get dinner on, and I'd be trying to push work aside, trying to get dinner on, and they're trying to like, Mom, I just want to show you this, Mom, and they're kind of all over me.
Yeah.
And it took me a good while to realize that if I just I receive them coming home. Yeah. And I got two boys,
Yeah.
I give them 10 minutes each of like, right, you got 10 minutes. What do you want to do with Mum? And you do anything they wanted to do. Right. Anything
Yeah.
they do. And I'd sit with them and then they'd bugger off for 2 hours, Rich. It'd be like,
Right.
then I'd be in the kitchen going, where'd everybody go? Because they got
Yeah.
the chance to
Just that bit of connection, that bit of love, attention,
yeah,
affection,
tanks.
and to know that you're present with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're available. And it is a real juggle. And I think especially for I work with a lot of dads, I work with a lot of men who really are navigating this completely new role of being a father, right, of being a
Yeah.
father and being a provider, because they're wanting to be hands-on dads. Yeah, they're really wanting to show up
Yeah.
as dads, and they've never seen it before.
Yeah.
They've never seen how to do it, because so many of our dads either weren't present, like physically weren't present. A lot of us grew up without fathers in the picture, but or they were working all the time and they just weren't present as fathers. So I
Yeah.
totally get that there's a huge, huge shift happening in the world of being a father. And that provider role it's a really strong, conditioned role. And it's really challenging for the men out there to put down, as you say, so that they can be present for their kids when they have no reference point of how to do that, because they've never seen it done. So yeah,
Yeah. Let's just give people a bit more insight, Jacqlin, on yourself or your role at the minute, just so people get a bit more like understanding of where we're coming from and belief in like what the words that we're speaking. So your role at the minute is as a parent.
well, I'm a parent. Obviously, I have two boys. So
Yeah.
my boys are 9 and 12. So
Yeah.
entering into the tweens, or tweens just entering into the teens. And
Right.
I have a co-parent. We separated about 5 years ago. And when I separated, I was actually a hypnobirthing practitioner. So that's how
Right.
I got into the working with parents. I was teaching couples essentially how to unlearn everything they knew about birth, so they could go into birth in a very instinctual way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I was finding though, that there were a lot of, although these couples were really open-minded and they were, open to learning the breath work and all these new tools and approaches to navigate birth, they weren't really looking at the bigger picture, like after the birth. and I was the same, I was just like, just get me through the birth. I just want to know about the birth, and that was kind of the end point. I was
Yeah.
I wasn't looking at like, the next whole rest of my life, which is how long my kids are going to be around.
Yeah.
And I had no idea of how I was going to change when I became a parent. I had no idea how my husband was going to change when he becomes a parent.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
change. I mean, I playfully say that when we become parents, when we become parents, we turn into our parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our
Oh, I can see it.
they
Yeah. Yeah.
start falling out of our mouths.
So you've been separated for 4 years.
Yeah, it's probably 5 now. Yeah.
Same. It's quite bizarre. Same here. So just give a little bit of insight of myself as well. So yeah, just quickly, how old were your children when you separated? It's just important for people to get a good idea. How old were your kids?
We
Were they
were
teens or were they still?
no. So it's 7 and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 and 3.
Super important, very important times because they're still at school and stuff as well. Yeah. So my children were actually only three, 3 and 4, so they were still very young, and it was such a big decision for me to make on my path.
Yeah.
But I've got to share that the past 4 years of co-parenting have been the best self-development years of my life, to unconditionally love this woman who, blessed me with these children, and to work with her and to become best friends with her.
Yeah.
I guess for the sakes of our children, but also for the sakes of my self-development, yeah, so that's where I'm at, and I want to share my journey to encourage people to become best friends with their with their co-parenting pilots.
Yeah.
And yeah, for their children's sakes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting. What just dropped in while you were talking was I remember seeing a post in one of the parenting groups that I'm in, and it spoke about that in separated families, and how being in a broken family, there's nothing you can do. It'll always be a broken home. And this is one
Who
of the
wrote that?
well, exactly. It was a mum, and that was what she was feeling, because there's so much guilt. Yeah, and I mean, you said yourself it was a really a delicate decision to make. And
Oh,
I know that when I separated from my husband, I went through the same journey. It was like, God, I came from a separated family, and I'm about to do the same thing. And it wasn't a light decision. However, I never carried that loading of creating a broken home with my children, because those words have such charge and such loading, and to get away from that so that we can empower our children through separation and divorce, through a
yeah,
co-parenting relationship, that it's not necessarily, it's not necessary to load them up with that conditioning, because that is present. It's very much present. But
yeah,
that's what came through when you were talking, and I absolutely get it, because I work with so many co-parents. I've just partnered with a divorce and separation coach. So we're working together in terms of, she helps people through the divorce and separation process with all of the bits that they need, the financial, all of the pieces of the pie, so to speak, and I take the parenting piece. Because there's so many co-parents out there who are immediately, they're separating, but they're still trying to parent together, even though they couldn't do it. They're still trying to parent together, even though they're separated. And I know for you, from what I hear, you guys are rocking the co-parenting,
yeah.
situation. And my boy's dad and I are as well. However, we weren't in the beginning. There
No,
was a real sticky patch right at
yeah,
the beginning, where we actually kind of had to go like that, yeah, and
yeah,
almost become like business partners rather than co-parents, to kind of detangle everything and allow these two separate, people to find themselves again. And that's what we
yeah,
did. And then we could come back together and work
yeah,
out how we were going to co-parent. Um,
yeah,
and I think what I see out there is that either one parent or the other parent are so busy trying to control, what the other
yeah,
parent's doing, and what, or each other. And it just ends up in this big mess, man. And,
yeah.
still trying to do it the way they were, even though they're separated.
Using the children as a source of control, it's really, yeah, it really makes me feel sad when they use the children as like, or you can, or you'll speak to them later when I'm ready. Like, it's not about like, do you want to speak to your parent now? It's like, or you can speak to them when the parent's ready. It's like, yeah, but I guess that takes a lot of personal growth. But yeah, I literally had went back and looked at myself for 2 years, looked at myself and how could I change for this situation. Uh, yeah, that's what I did. Like, what can I change for my children about myself to be able to, like, communicate well with their mother.
Yeah.
And there's so much growth in that. It was so powerful.
I mean, I'm giggling. The reason why I'm giggling is because when I got out of my blame cycle,
Yeah.
after I stopped blaming my
Oh,
I wrote him a 10-page letter owning all my shit, owning all of my part of it, all of my pieces around the way that I was acting in our relationship, and it was one of the most powerful things I ever could have done. And I did it without
yeah.
expecting any reply from him. But I was doing the work, because I realized that I'd had 3 long-term relationships. And I think you and I have talked about this before. I had 3 long-term relationships and they all ended the same way. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They all ended the same way. It was like 3 different versions of the same man. And I was like,
Yeah.
hang on, I got to stop blaming these men, because
Yeah.
I'm the common denominator in this story. And that was for me the catalyst of all of the work that I've done, because we're so conditioned to blame outside of ourselves, and it's so disempowering, because we
Yeah.
can't change anybody outside of ourselves. So when I put my big girl pants on and started to take ownership of my stuff, everything changed. And when I work with parents, especially ones that are in co-parenting situations, and let's face it, that's half the parents out there these days. They sort of get really, they're often really down, thinking that they can't do anything about it because they can't change anything from one side. And the co-parent, or the kid's dad or the kid's mum won't, or are unwilling to come and do work on their parenting. And like, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can do it from one side and you watch the dynamic shift, and it's incredible. Because I did the work, my boy's dad didn't go and do self-development work, but our relationship has
Yes.
profoundly shifted.
Same. Same. Just quickly on where we're at right now. Okay. What I'm finding is, yeah, I know we're on about teens and children, but what me and Jacqlin are sharing, you've got to do the work on yourself. Do the work on yourself first. Look at your patterns. Look at what's repeating itself, and see if you can work on that. And I was exactly the same to you. After a year of kind of blame, and if she would have done this, we would have still been together because I was the best parent I could have been. And I was a professional sportsman, so how could I be doing nothing wrong? I didn't drink, and until I realized I had so much expectation on her to appreciate me that I was actually like pushing her away. And it was a Ramdas, a Ramdas lecture I listened to. If anyone here has heard Ramdas, and I literally was like, fell to my knees. I was like, she was doing nothing wrong. I was expecting her to appreciate me more because I was doing more, So even though I was doing my self-development and I was changing, I was the best father I could be, I was expecting more from her than she had to offer. So in fact, I was pushing her away with wanting more from her because I wanted her to appreciate me more.
Yeah.
And so when I realized this, I realized just her love language was different to mine, but I wasn't taught love languages, and neither was she. So I was expecting her to match my love language. And I pushed her away because I was always wanting this touch and affection when she was just loving me.
Yeah.
But she wasn't fulfilling my language. So I ended up, breaking up because I felt I deserved better. But then when I realized I was just expecting from her what she couldn't offer, I literally wrote her a letter and I called her and apologized for me trying to change her the way I wanted her to be.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most powerful moments of my life, is forgiving her and then forgiving myself for wanting her to be like me. Oh my God, it was just there. From there onwards, our relationship, our co-parenting changed, But I also realized we couldn't have probably continued in a relationship as the best version of ourselves as parents, because I would never be fulfilled and she would never be able to give me what I needed. So we know this now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we understand each other. We expect nothing from each other, And it's just, coming to those realizations is the most powerful thing you can do. And I feel that, Jacqlin, what you want to do now is bring this awareness to teenagers, so they know there's a love language. you know, so they understand everyone's different and break
Yeah.
that chain, eh?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely pieces that I want to speak to around that, because I know exactly what you're saying. This piece around appreciation, because obviously I can speak from the other side of that, because I gave my husband zero appreciation, yeah, because
Yeah.
I just nagged and criticized him.
Yeah. Wow.
Because that is what I saw growing up. Yeah, that was my reference point. That was my conditioning. That was the behavior that was modeled to me. So I just repeated it. And the beautiful part about my journey and my learning is that, you know, I now understand how that works. Yeah, how that conditioning works. What's being normalized to me as normal behavior. Because I'd be doing it with my kids as well. Yeah, I would be picking and focusing on the negative bits, on the shitty bits, what they weren't doing, yeah, what they weren't getting right, rather than shifting my focus. And this takes, you know, consciousness, it takes personal development work, shifting my focus onto what they were doing, how they were showing up, that was amazing, the little things that they were doing that were super fucking cool. Because if our RAS is what the part of the brain is called, the reticular activating system. That's the part of the brain that filters all of the information that we receive. And it only allows us to see what we've previously made important, right? So if we're a bit of a negative Nancy, then that's what we're going to see. And I was sort of giggling as you were sharing, because my brother came to live with us when I separated and he separated. So we were both separated. So we were like, well, we may as well be separated together, right? So he came and lived with me, and I started practicing some really different ways of being. And like, if he took the rubbish out, I'd be like, right, zone in. And I would appreciate the fuck out of that man for taking the rubbish out. And then he started doing more. And then he started doing more things. And I was just like, wow, this is a really different way, because the nagging and criticizing way certainly didn't work, because all I got, just like you've spoken into, Rich, from your side, was a husband that withdrew. Yeah, he just withdrew. And I had no idea why. And I was banging my head up against the same old wall, doing the same old thing. So when I was able to shift my focus and actually notice what my kids, yeah, because I've got two little men, and what my brother was doing, and, you know, and new partners that I've had since, focusing on what they're doing that is amazing, and focusing on their greatness, and man,
Yeah. Just quit your own shit, quit your own nagging and expectations, and
yeah.
hey,
But there's, you know, so there's two beautiful sides to that story. You know, your expectations coming in from one side, and my expectations, and your, you know, your co-parent, and understanding those two sets of expectations and where they come from, so we can spot them and see them, and then start to chuck a spanner in the works of those, you know, patterns from the past, because that's exactly what they are, and start to model something different. And it's huge. It's absolutely huge. Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to do things just out of love and not wanting appreciation. You know, it's nice just to do things anyway. But I just think a little bit of acknowledgement and the odd bit of appreciation is nice, you know.
Totally. And especially the masculine part of us, right? The masculine in you, the masculine in me. It's like, you know, that acknowledgement and validation is such a big part of who we are as humans. And most of us didn't get enough of it when we were kids. So we're still seeking it outside of ourselves. But, you know, all of this stuff, as you say, you know, when we want to bring this stuff to our children and our tweens and teens, it does start with us. Yeah, it absolutely starts with us. And our kids are little mirrors. They're little barometers, right? And they know what's going on for us way before we do, because they're so tuned in, energetically and emotionally. They can feel it. They might not understand it, but they can feel what's going on. And this is one of the biggest pieces, because I get so many parents coming to me and saying, just fix my kid, you know, just fix my kids. There's, you know, something wrong with the kids. And I'm like, okay, we're going to start with you first. and the what's going on for the kids organically changes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Organically
So,
changes.
Jacqlin, there's a bit of understanding around, a little bit of an insight around our understanding as parents. So, back to our workshop then. How is our understanding as parents going to be played in the workshop that we're going to do?
So, are you talking about the panel that we're talking on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the hub, what would a play workshop look like? That's what I want to know.
What a play workshop look like? So a play workshop is an embodied experience. Yeah, it's an embodied experience around play, so that we can start to understand for ourselves what it is that gets in the way of us showing up in a playful way. Yeah, what is it that gets in the way of us accessing that smaller part of ourselves so that we can bring them out to play? Because most of us were shut down really early on in terms of being noisy and boisterous and loud. We were seen and not heard. That was the way back in our day, let's say that. And a lot of people, even the recent workshops that I've done at festivals, they're people in their 20s, younger than we are, that's for sure, are still finding it really hard to get out of fear of judgment, to get out of the seriousness or the intensity that they're feeling, and being able to show up in a lighter way. Being able to show up in a way that doesn't feel so contained and rigid or even performed, where they're not feeling like they have to wear a mask. And so much of the way that so many people, myself included, for so many years, was showing up in a way that wasn't authentic. It wasn't really me. I was being who I thought other people wanted me or needed me to be, who I thought I should be. So when I run these workshops with my beautiful friend Tom, it is a way to be able to start to take those masks off and to have an embodied experience, a felt experience of how the energy of play can invite us into way deeper levels of connection, with other people. And one of the workshops that I did at Spirit Festival last year, some of the groups, like we ended up in these little groups, little groups of about 4 people. And one of the groups especially came back and said to me that they spent the next 2 hours after the workshop together as a little group because they felt so deeply connected with one another. And this is through play. This is through play. And I mean, I love the cacao ceremonies and all of the spiritual side of what's happening at a lot of these festivals. However, play for me, and for what I'm seeing when I had 70 people yelling out these playful words across the festival, that play is like a direct route. It's like a one-way highway direct route into connection.
Now, what I'm feeling as you're explaining that, right? What I'm feeling is an adult or a parent feeling that vibration of playfulness again, of just dropping the distractions and the workload and all the other pressures, and just being in a playful mode. And then what I can see is, imagine now your children coming in when you're in this energy, and how you would approach them differently if they came to you and asked you for something, or they wanted to go on the swings, and you're already in that, you found this within you again, rather than the day and what we're going to do tomorrow, and what, it would be such a different interaction with your children, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It's the to-do list it just flies away, right? And the way that I love to language it is that it's the energy of innocence, right? It's that childlike awe that we see when a child looks at the world, and they're looking at it through eyes of innocence, and it's like they've never seen something before. They're looking.
Could you do this with children? Could you do this with your children?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just kind of go around. Like, I remember being at the beach, and I was at the beach with Tom, who I facilitate the play workshops with. And we came up, this little rock pool, and we just sort of both crouched down, on our heels, And we just started looking at this rock pool, and we must have spent 10 minutes there in silence, just watching this scene unfold with all these anemones that were going all over these crabs. And it was like this battle, and it was insane. And if we hadn't have stopped and just dropped into that energy and looked at it with fresh eyes, as if we'd never seen a rock pool before. And it was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. And now, I'll be sort of at the beach with my kids or something, and I'll just sort of go down on my hands and knees and sort of, we'll go down at that level and just see the world and experience the world from that place. And it's a completely,
and maybe connect with your own inner child again for the things it missed out on.
Totally. Absolutely. 100%. It's like, I think a lot of the adults that I come into contact with, especially around my work, they sort of think it's too late. It's too late. I can't find that again. And I'm like, yeah, you can. We're going to do it. So, and that's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's like, we all have that smaller version that's still very much a part of ourselves. And a lot of the masks and the armor that we wear and the seriousness, intensity, and responsibility of being an adult is protecting that vulnerable part of ourselves. And when we can actually start to invite that part out, life becomes very different.
Yeah. It's definitely an opportunity to relive your childhood days and take it. Make the most of being able to drop all your heaviness just for a moment of being like 100% present with your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, I'm just going to read it off my wall because I wrote this a little while ago. And I said, drop the preoccupation with trying to figure out the right way to parent and just bring more of you into your child's life. Just bring more of you. That's all they want, right? They just want you to kind of hang out with them. And life and being a parent and responsibility and adult and all that stuff just gets so heavy. And when we can find ways to be in this different space of innocence and play and spaciousness, we can actually bring a really different dynamic to our lives and to our children, which doesn't feel controlled or intense or the old way that most of us were raised. It's a very different way. And when I speak about this, what it is that we're different. We're parenting in a completely different climate, a completely different environment. And our kids have access to so much more information than we ever had when we were kids. And we have to parent in a really different way.
It's an overload for them, isn't it?
It is. And the information that they have access to in the online space and the fact that we are in a very different world means that the way that we need to parent has to change. It has to change. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Hey, just quickly, just so we don't get cut off, how long have we been on for?
Probably about 40 minutes.
Okay. Cause I know there's a little timer on these that it cuts off. So yeah.
I won't on mine because I've got the full version of Zoom.
Oh, nice.
We're good for hours, but I think we've been going about 40. So I think.
So I was just listening. Yeah, I was listening to us both talk there because we're talking from this end of the scale, and it's not easy when you first, when there's a first breakup or when you're trying to do co-parent from the start. So I don't expect it to be like, oh, you should do it like this. But what I'm trying to do is provide a platform as a help and guidance from what I had to do alone and figure out for myself. I want to give people some guidelines and some stepping stones towards it, making it easier.
Yeah.
And taking a look at themselves rather than looking on what to change on the outside. That's my biggest thing. My latest thing, which I shared with you yesterday, was like I've got my two daughters, and the relationship with my co-parent and myself is amazing. But what drifted was I'm a stepfather as well, but I stepfathered my stepson for longer than my kids. So I met her while she had a 5-year-old. Yeah. And so he came into my life first, and then like 6 months down the line, she got pregnant, and then our family created. So he's actually like, I've actually been parenting him for longer. But what happened with the breakup, this is really important for people, I think, to understand this. So what happened in the breakup, like, she was like, oh, I'll go do this with my son, you can take the girls away. So like, she had her comfort. We both spoke about this as parents just the other night. She had her comfort and I had mine.
Yeah.
But what that created was like the connection I had with my stepson was real close, but then it started to drift a little bit, and I didn't feel as comfortable being as disciplined with him in the end because what I was with my own kids. I'd kind of like be disciplined with him, like, I don't know, for example, like go do the dishes, but he'd look at his mum and be like, do I have to do the dishes? She'd be like, oh well, he did them earlier. So like that, now there's this like, oh, there's no discipline, there's no strength coming from my word.
Yeah.
And then that's grown and grown and grown for the past almost 2 years, where I've kind of stepped back. Well, I decided the other day, he's a teenager now. I need to take responsibility. Not just like let this go. I'm going to take responsibility. So we had another chat. We have like what we call check-ins. So we had a chat, and I was like, I feel like I want to be more in his life, not because my ego wants to tell him what to do, but because I want to speak to him like I do the girls. I want this to be a family again, a family like, a family like, so he feels like it's family, the girls feel like it's family. And it was just a beautiful conversation we had, which probably couldn't have been had 2 years ago. It needs the time, but like, we've got to keep stepping up as co-parents and as parents. We've got to keep the communication going. We've got to step up. Yeah, and it felt real good that I had this chat. So it felt real good. And I got to share what I did with him. So rather than be like, we'd have me and the mother in the chat, rather than be like, hey, I'm getting back into your life now as a voice. And I didn't. I stepped in. I was like, hey, I've got I'd like to buy you the app, the Audible app, and like for your phone, because I've got some great Audible books I'd like you to listen to. So rather than me preach to him, so there's a great one. I think it's something like do what the fuck you want, So for a teenager, at least if his friends like say, oh, what you listen to, it's something cool, but it's actually it's a real personal development class, book. So it's not preaching, but I feel like I've stepped my game up. I bought him this app. I've shared him with this book. Yeah, so.
Oh, you're frozen. Let's see if Rich comes back. Oh, there you are.
You're back, yeah. So that was just something that I've empowered myself with, was that situation just the weekend just gone, and that's 4 years down the line.
Yeah. Well, I think that how I'd love to respond to that is it's never too late. It's never too late. These are evolving and shifting, and I speak about the program period when our kids are 0 to 7. That's when they're getting all of the information that they need to understand how they fit into the world, right? That's when they're conditioned. And it's never too late. I mean, my boy, as I said, was 7 before I really started working on my parenting and really started understanding how all of this stuff, came in and impacted and benefited us. So that was the first thing that I wanted to say. But the other thing is that there's no rules, man. There's no rules, in terms of the way that we want to create our family dynamic. And because we're stuck in these cycles of the past that we have no, control or no awareness of a lot of the time, until we start looking at the way that we parent and why, we're just kind of replaying them. When we can find that awareness, we can start to unravel it. We can start to unravel it and look at what's been normalized. Yeah, and a lot of the time, the 2.5 kids with the white picket fence in the house, that's been normalized just from patterns of the past. But it's like, okay, well, what feels natural to us? What feels natural to our dynamic, to our family, and then go for that, because that is what's going to be authentic. That's where you're going to find like an effortlessness in the way that you parent, because you're not just trying to abide by the rules of society or the way that your parents did it or the way that your neighbors do it or Auntie Joe does it, and stepping out of judgment or in fear of judgment is such a massive part of that. And I talk about these parent traps. I mentioned the we parent from the past trap. I mean, the judgment trap is massive, right?
Yeah.
So much judgment that we feel in our lives as parents coming from outside of ourselves. And to be able to step outside of that and get really, really good support and empowerment around that piece so that you can do your family however the fuck you want, right? I mean, you're giving your son a book, do whatever you do, what the fuck you want. And this is exactly it. It's like, because the recipe is not the same for everyone. And when we can find our own authentic recipe and step into that, man, life becomes really different.
Yeah. And not being that preacher as well, Jacqlin? I understand. I'm just a baby. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know.
Yeah.
And so even if I come up with something which I feel is beneficial towards my co-parenting or my children, I don't preach it. I'll bring it in as a modality or an idea. Even if with other parents, I don't, this is the right or wrong way. Hey, this is what works for me, from my experience, from my conditioning. This is what works for me. Like, maybe, try this or give this a go. Don't be that parent that preaches about what their kids should eat, what time they should go to bed, all this kind of stuff. I base my parenting on my kids' happiness. How happy are they? If they go to bed at 10 o'clock with us and wake up at 7 and they're not tired at school and they're always happy, let's not judge them having to go to bed at 7 p.m. and all that kind of, yeah.
No, when our parents preached to us, did we listen?
Yeah, no, totally. I got parents that preach to me about what my kids should eat, what time they should go to bed, and their children are wild. And they're having tantrums, and they're having, your children, they're basing their fear and experience upon what I should do. Bring it back to, like, how's it look for you? How's it look? My parent, we traveled with a circus for a year with my kids when they were 1 and 2.5, and I was a full-time father for all that period, whilst my partner was the ring mistress of the host of the show. So I changed nappies for a year. I flew from South Africa to UK with my 2 babies by myself, and they pulled me up at the airport. It was like, no, where's the mother gone? You've stole the kids. And then I flew from UK to New Zealand with 2 babies by myself. And it's very interesting when some women will say, "Oh, you don't know how it is." I say, "No, I do know how it is." And so, yeah.
You've been there, man.
I fucking been there.
Yeah.
That was an interesting flight, believe me.
Having 2 kids on a plane. Yep, I know what it's like.
24 hours.
I remember with my little one walking up and down the aisle of the plane, because I thought, well, at least then the whole plane's just going to get them for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And oh man, it was harsh. And yeah, we went traveling for about 3 months through Southeast Asia when our kids were pretty small as well.
Yeah.
It was incredible, and just to get the different ways that people are, and this is what we're talking about, right? That you just got to do it your way.
Yeah, you got to play with parenting. Play with it. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
You chose it. You chose it. So don't push it away. Enjoy it. Yeah. You signed up for it. If you signed up for it, do it. Do it to the best of your ability.
Well, and I mean, get some bloody help with it. I mean, this is one of the biggest things, right? I mean, I've had numerous coaches and mentors over the past 7 years, and it's the best thing I've ever done. And we sort of think, oh, well, only athletes have coaches, and it's just not true anymore. And I sort of say to people, you know, you can go the slow way and hope that you get to somewhere different. But most of us, you know, in terms of doing something different, we're stuck in these patterns. Yeah. And as the old saying goes, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. Right.
Yeah.
And in terms of parenting, as I said before, that our parenting is our relationship with everyone and everything. So if we go there and we learn more about it, we start to unravel patterns everywhere, and we start to see shifts everywhere. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
understanding my shit around money and my shit around body image and food and, you know, sex and sexuality and all of these pieces. Yeah. How I relate to myself. And, you know, my relationship with my own parents, you know, all shifted from working on my parenting. But we all think we got to do it on our own, right? And there's incredible support out there these days that can, you know, fast track what's going on for us. And in terms of, you know, you sort of mentioned it earlier in this talk that, you know, having a responsibility or choosing to actually start to dismantle these patterns from the past, we have that opportunity right here, right now, because we have a lot more space in our lives than our parents did when they were in survival. So, you know, it's definitely a choice that I wanted to make to bring, you know, higher levels of consciousness into my life so that my kids get it organically through me, rather than trying to just have, you know, put it all on them, essentially put it all on them. And I mean, a lot of that is what's coming through with a lot of what's going on in the world, right? This kind of ignoring of the big realities of what's going on in our world, hoping that our kids will fucking sort it out.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Are you?
Yeah. I just let people know. So I'm so far, I'm like right out in the sticks here in beautiful Murray. So you might keep losing me. I'm on the west coast here. So just bear with a little times when I lose you.
Probably be
Yeah.
50 minutes. So
yeah, I think that's beautiful. I mean, that's just real skimming the surface, eh? With our passions around this.
We could
I like this. I'm always learning, eh? I love it. For the fact I'm excited that I'm always learning on this path.
Yeah.
I never, whatever I say, whatever I learn is never like the way it is. It's like, wow, this is another way I can improve myself as a parent, as a co-parent, you know?
Yeah. That's what one of the things I was going to say, Rich, when you were talking before, you know, when you said, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know.
Yeah.
One of the most powerful moments that I had when, you know, in my earlier years as a parent, when I first said to my boys, you know what, before you guys came along, I wasn't a parent. You know, this is the first time I've ever done this. It's the first time you've been a kid, and it's the first time I've been a parent. How about we just try and work this out together, you know, make it up as we go along? And they were just like, oh, you know, there was so much relief in that, because
it's the first time you've been one, it's the first time you've been two, it's the first time I've had a 3 or a 4, you know?
Yeah. And it just, all of that pressure just dissolves, you know, and we were able to kind of laugh about it and think, yeah, God, this is just a way that we can muddle our way through, and take off that pressure of having to get it all right and having to have it all together. And man, the biggest gift that you can give to your kids is to show them that you don't that you don't have it all together, and you know that you're making mistakes all over the place, and how to do that with as much ease and grace and humor as you can.
And I feel the biggest gift I could give my kids is to be present when I'm with them. You know, when you're at the beach, be at the beach. I love this saying. I think it's another Ramdas one. And when you're at work, you're at work. You know, you're at work. When you're with the kids, just be with the kids.
Yeah.
And be present.
And let them know when you can't. I mean, the other day I was walking I was in the library with my little guy, and he was going blah 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 blah, and I just looked at him and I said, dude, I wasn't listening, man. I didn't hear any of that. And he goes,
Yeah.
I wasn't listening to myself either. So,
Yeah.
because I said, can you tell me that again? And he goes, Mum, I wasn't listening to myself either. And we both cracked up. It was like, but there's just an honesty in there that when we can't be present, we can say, look, actually, I've got so much stuff in my brain at the moment. I'm just,
Yeah.
and that's the piece. It's like the
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's just touch base on that quickly, because like, hey, it's not easy, eh?
Well, and I love
I'm a breathwork coach, a breathwork practitioner. I help people come from fight or flight to rest and digest. I'm a mixed martial artist. I'm a professional athlete. I've got that discipline within me, but there's times when I'm just like, it's just noise, eh? There's so much going on. It's so overwhelming. And I just have to really bring myself back to like, hey, I just, I need my time, kids, and I need to do like 5 breaths. So I just do a simple 5 breaths, which is 5 seconds in, and then it's 5 seconds out, and it's repeated 5. It's just 1 minute, and it just helps me recenter. Step out the noise. I just say, just give me 1 minute, kids. I need this. Otherwise, you're just going to be, your nervous system is going to be jarred. You're in fight or flight, and then you're going to react. Hey, you're going to react upon something small because of your own build-up of pressure. So that's what I really want to teach. I'd love to share that in your class as well with them. It's probably something you do anyway, but yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's creating space, right? Just that space, and it has and for that to come from our need as a parent, so that the kid's not taking it personally, because that's what they do. Everything that's going on for us is their fault unless they know something different. Oh, mum's in a bad mood, it must be me. Oh, mum's ignoring me, it must be me. And it's like, there's nothing to do with you, dude. I'm just like got all this shit on my plate, and blah blah blah. So creating that space, and that's one of it's probably the biggest thing that I help parents do. Because you mentioned bedtimes before, and when I tell the parents that I work with, that I let my kids choose when they go to bed, they're like, what, are you insane? And I'm like, yeah, I do. However, at 8 o'clock, mum is off duty. She is off duty. Yeah, mum has changed her name from mum to Jacqlin. Yeah. And I have a sign on my door, and it says, after 8 p.m, mum is off duty. If it's an emergency.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, this is a good one. If the house is burning down, if someone's chopped one of their arms off, then come and get me. Otherwise, mum is off duty. 8 p.m. You do what you go do your comics, you read your book, you put yourself to bed. I've said good night, and they go to bed. And the rule that we have is that you choose the time that you go to bed. But if you're a grumpy ass in the morning, like if you're chucking grumpiness all over everybody, then it's mum's choice. And then
we do. Yeah.
And then we try again weeks later. But it supports them in their choice to which is one of the biggest premises that I use in my work. Support your kids in their choice with what they want to do. Right? If they want to stay up a bit later, but mum is off duty, then cool, we can work with that. We can make it work. But then, we try again in a couple of weeks, and it's a different way of parenting that comes from empowerment.
Yeah, I let my kids understand why. I let them understand why. Okay, stay awake late. I says, but when you're at school and you feel tired, then they'll come home like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I says, well, that's it.
Yeah. I lost you again, 'cause you're out in Murawai. But I can talk to myself. Hello. Oh man, I bet you're saying some cool stuff too. Waiting. Ah, maybe you've gone completely. You're frozen. Maybe we should wrap this up, Rich. Are you there, Rich? Oh, you're back.
Yay!
You're back.
Yeah, I just literally are we still recording the same one?
We are. You froze momentarily.
Yeah. I was just saying yeah, it's just about they go to bed early and going to bed when I was a kid in the daylight, thinking it was like a punishment. Oh, and that was what I was gonna say. I chose to be a parent. I want to be with you. If it's the last day of my life, I want to be with you until you fall asleep. If this is my last day to be alive, I don't want to put you to bed and miss 2 hours of life with you. You know,
Right.
that's the way I view things. You know, I don't. If it's the last day of my life, what would I do with you today? You know, how would I be with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what was I going to say as you were talking? The felt experience, that's what I was going to say. You know, when we give our kids the opportunity to get tired, you know, and to have that felt experience, and this is huge, man. I could talk for another 3 hours on this, but to allow our kids to feel, to have that felt experience, so that they're not just getting told what to do, right? They're not just getting controlled. It's like, yeah, but bedtime's 7 o'clock and you need to go to bed. It's like, okay, when they do have a late night, and then they're through their own choice, then they go to school and they're completely grumpy butts in the morning, and they have that felt experience, then they learn in a really different way. Yeah, it's an embodied experience that they learn from, not just concept of us telling them that that's their bedtime. And there's one way that I work with parents in terms of screens, right? Because screens are a big thing in our lives as parents. Our kids are growing up with these, and you know, we never did in our generation. They were just sort of starting to come in, and a lot of the parents have so much control and restriction around screens. Yeah, it's like, you know, we've got to protect our kids. We've got to, you know, and the way that I look at this big topic, and I did a workshop on it just recently, is that we need to empower our kids around the online space. Yeah. And that is a very different thing. And I remember my boy coming home one day and saying, "Oh, Mum, I heard about this new game. It's called Five Nights at Freddy's, and I really want to play it." And I was like, "Okay, well, let's have a little look around, you know." And we got onto YouTube and watched some Five Nights at Freddy's videos, and it's a horror game, right?
Yeah.
And so we were watching these videos, and I was like, "Oh, dude, it's making me feel a bit icky in here."
Yeah.
And he looked at me and goes, "Yeah, Mum, me too. Should we turn it off?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." But the thing is that if I had said, "No way, you're not playing it," he would never have had that felt experience and made his own choice to say, "Yeah, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to play it. I don't want to watch it." And that's a really different way of parenting, and that's where I come from. And there's so many versions of that, because another friend of mine, and I'll just do this quickly before we choose whether we're going to wrap up or not, because we could go on for hours. But she said, "Oh, little girl wants to, you know, she wants TikTok and she wants to watch TikTok and blah, blah, blah." And I've said no. And I said, "She's banned and blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Oh, so she's probably going to watch it at a friend's place." You know, and she might see something that she doesn't like, that makes her feel uncomfortable, and she can't talk to you about it because you've banned it. Yeah. So there's so many things in terms of parenting in a different way that are coming up in the world right now. You know, the world has changed significantly, and the way that we parent needs to change with it.
Yeah. So that's us just touch the base of everything, hey?
Yeah, there's a lot of juice in what we've just spoken about, you know, and it's just
juice there. Yeah. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to coming to your beautiful class presentation and being a part of it and learning. I get to learn more. How cool.
Yep. And learning through the energy of play is huge.
Yeah.
As I said, it's the gateway. It's a portal. you know, to a very different place, a very different place of connection within ourselves and with other
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
So
And
your class will just be adults, yeah?
this one, yep, will be, yeah.
Adult.
We could,
Yeah.
you know, there's definitely scope to have a you know, parent-child class. That'd be quite fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Wow. I think that's me for now.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of ground on this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a little bit about everything, really.
Totally.
And my example to everyone is, to take whatever I've said. If you know me and know my children, that there is the result, and the energy is in them. You can see it in them. It's always so that's how I lead by my example, is how my children are in a day-to-day life,
Yeah.
and how happy they always are, and how balanced their moods are as well, and that's with eating the odd McDonald's, that's with eating sugary foods. It's not about the food, it's about the energy as a parent you're putting into your child. The
Yeah.
food would be a trigger, but it's what you put in them. Hey, do you like that? I like that. Just come up with that.
There's wisdom there. Yep.
Yeah, it's you. It's not blaming their sleep. It's not blaming the lack of sleep is a trigger from how they're feeling. So is the food.
Yeah.
Like my kids eat ice cream, sugar, and I say I did as a kid until I was 20. And look, I feel I've turned out fine. I was a professional athlete. I've been on my own spiritual path for 20 years. So hey, eating sugar and bad food as a kid, let's not blame the kids'
No.
behavior upon that.
I mean,
Take a look at yourself as a parent
some
at
of the
home.
best experiences that I had as a kid was around sugar and lollies and, you know, marshmallows on the fire and all of that. And there's no way that I was going to restrict my kids and stop them from having those beautiful memories,
Yeah,
because I did for a while. But here's a premise for you that I use in my work: the energy that we bring to our parenting is everything. Everything.
yeah, everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because we have a much greater capacity to change our energy than our kids do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like we set the scene, right? We set the scene.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow for some people, because I know some people are so uptight about their diets for their kids and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But again, take a look at what I ate as a kid. I'm never sick. I've been high standard athlete, and yeah.
Yeah. We've got to enjoy life, right? If we're restricting every part of our existence, then
Yeah.
that's how we're going to be. It's like we're going to feel like we're in a fucking prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, how long we've been on for? Is that an hour?
Probably. Yeah. Just over.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I've really enjoyed this chat, and it's just the beginning. Yeah, it's going to be lovely working with you. And yeah, anything else you want to leave? How to get in touch with you?
Well, I guess we can put it under the videos, but my website or my Facebook page is called Your Parent Journey with Jacqlin. And I have a Facebook group that is full of incredibly open-minded parents who want to do things a different way, which is awesome. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And my website is www.yourparentjourney.com.
Yeah, and so the date and time of the workshop?
Well, we don't have that yet, so we will have that. I'll get in touch with Rihanna, isn't it? And we will
looking at August though, eh?
get some workshops in place.
You're just looking at August?
We can do. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Excited.
Cool. Sounds good.
Cool.
Right.
Yeah. So the videos will be going up on the Holistic Hub website, which is our community venue. And this is just the beginning of my new podcast, EnRich Holistic. And there's my EnRich Breathwork Facebook and Instagram and all that. So yeah. Excited. Cool. Well, have a beautiful day. I'm going to go do some of my day work now. Enjoy it. Just reflect on what we've been talking about. So thank you, Jacqlin.
You're very welcome. It was great to chat. I think we could talk for
Cool.
hours. I know.
Yeah, just make sure you hit that save button on this beautiful recording.
Yeah. All right, I'll
Okay.
end the recording now.
Yeah, much love.